Morning. Morning. Welcome to the stream. I'm baking bagels. Got my first batch in bulk right now. A little bit sleepy today. Hello. Welcome to the stream. Oh my God. I did not get enough sleep last night. That's not ready. Pot burner is making a popping noise. I think it's extinguished. It leaks black gas and then it fires up.
Hamlin towns in Brunswick, my famous Hanover city. The river Weser, deep and wide, washes its wall on the southern side. A pleasanter spot you've never spied. But when begins my ditty, almost 500 years ago, to see the townsfolk suffer so from vermin was pity. Rats, they fought the dogs and killed the cats, and bit the babies in the cradles, and ate the cheeses from the vats, and licked the soup from the cooks' own ladles, split open the kegs of salted sprats, made nests in my Sunday hats, and even spoiled the women's chats by drowning out their speaking, with shrieking and squeaking in 50 different sharps and flats. At last the people in a body to the town hall came flocking. "'Tis clear," cried they, "our mayor is a naughty, and as for our corporation, shocking to think we buy gowns lined with ermine, for dolts who can't or won't determine what's best to rid us of our vermin. You hope because you're old and obese to find in the furry civic robes ease. Rouse up, sirs, give your brains a racking, to find the remedy we are lacking, or sure as fate will send you packing." At this, the mayor and corporation quaked with a mighty consternation. An hour they sat in council. At length the mayor broke silence. "For a guilder I'd my ermine gown sell. I wish I were a mile hence. It's easy to bid one rack one's brain. I'm sure my poor head aches again. I scratch it so, but all in vain. Oh, for a trap, a trap, a trap." Just as he said this, what should hap? At the chamber door, but a gentle tap. "Bless us," cried the mayor, "what's that?" With the corporation as he sat, looking little through wondrous fat. Nor brighter were his eyes, nor moister than a too long opened oyster, save when at noon his paunch grew mutinous for a plate of turtle green and glutinous. Only a scraping of shoes on a mat, anything like the sound of a rat makes my heart go pit-a-pat. "Come in," cried the mayor, looking bigger, and in did come the strangest figure. His long queer coat from heel to head was half yellow and half red, and he himself was tall and thin, with sharp blue eyes, each like a pin, and light loose hair and swarthy skin, nor tuft of hair on cheek nor beard on chin, but lips where smile went out and in. There was no guessing his kith or kin, and nobody could enough admire this tall man in his quaint attire. Quoth one, "It's as my great-grandsire, starting up at the trump of doom's tone, had walked this way from his painted tombstone." He advanced towards the council table, and "Please, your honour," said he, "I am able, by means of secret charm, to draw all the creatures living beneath the sun, that crawl or swim or fly or run after me, so as you never saw. And I chiefly use my charm on creatures that do people harm, the mole and toad and newt and viper, and people call me the Pied Piper." And here they noticed round his neck a scarf of red and yellow stripe, to match with his coat of self-same check. And at scarf's end hung a pipe, and his fingers they noticed were ever straying, as if impatient to be playing upon this pipe, as low it dangled over his vesture so old-fangled. "Yes," said he, "Pied Piper as I am, in Tartary I fed the cam, last June from his huge swarms of gnats. I eased in Asia denies am, the monsters brood of vampire bats. And as for what your brain bewilders, if I rid your town of rats, will you give me 1,000 guilders?" 50,000 was the exclamation of astonished mayor and corporation. Into the street the piper stepped, smiling first a little smile, as if he knew what magic slept in his quiet pipe the while. Like a musical adept to blow his pipe, his lips he wrinkled, and green and blue his sharp eyes twinkled, like a candle flame where salt is sprinkled. And ere 3 shrill notes the pipe uttered, he heard as if an army muttered, and the muttering grew to a grumbling, and the grumbling grew to a mighty rumbling, and out of the houses came the rats tumbling, great rats, small rats, lean rats, brawny rats, brown rats, black rats, grey rats, tawny rats, grave old plotters, gay young friskers, fathers, mothers, uncles, cousins, talking tales and pretty whiskers, families by tens and dozens, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, full of the Pied Piper for their lives, From street to street he piped advancing, and step for step they followed dancing, until they came to the river Weser, wherein all plungers perished, save one who stout as Julius Caesar swam across the lip to carry, as he the manuscript he cherished, to Ratland home as commentary, which was at first shriek of the pipe. I heard a sound as of scraping tripe, and putting apples wondrous ripe into the cider presses bright, and moving away pickle tub boards, leaving a jar of concert cupboards, and drawing the corks of train oil flasks, and breaking loops of butter casks. It seemed as if a voice, heard far than by harp and by psalteries breathed, called out, "O rats, rejoice! The world is grown to a vast dry saltery. So munch on, crunch on, take your nunch on, breakfast, supper, dinner, lunch on, and just the bulky sugar punch on, already staged like a great sun shone. Gracious scarce an inch before me, just as we thought it said come for me. I felt the blessing rolling over me. You should have heard the Hamlin people ring the bells as they rocked the steeple. Go, cried the mayor, get long poles, poke out the nets and block up the holes, consult with carpenters and builders, and leave in our town not even a trace of the rats. When suddenly up the face of the piper perked in the marketplace, the first, if you please, by 1,000 guilders. 1,000 guilders. The mayor looked blue, so did the corporation too. For counts of dinners they were having, Hurray, Sal, Big McGraw, Pop, and half the money would replenish their seller's biggest butter Brenish, to pay this sum to a wondering fellow, with gypsy coat of red and yellow. Besides, quoth the mayor with a knowing wink, our business was done at the river's brink. We saw with our eyes the vermin sink. What's dead can't come to life, I think. So, friend, we're not folks to shrink from our duty of giving you something to drink, and a matter of money to put in your poke. But as for the guilders, what we spoke of them, as you well know, wasn't joke. Besides, their losses have made us thrifty. 1,000 guilders, come, take 50. The piper's face fell and he cried, no trifling, I can't wait beside. I promise to visit by dinner time Baghdad, and accept the prime of the head cook's potage. All he is rich in, for having left in the caliph's kitchen, of a nest of scorpions, no survivor. With him I prove no bargain driver. With you don't think I'll bait a stiver. And folks who put me in a passion may find me pipe after another fashion. How, cried the mayor, do you think I brook being worse treated than a cook, insulted by a rival, with idle pipe and vesture piebald? Threaten us, fellow, do your worst, blow your pipe there till you burst. Once more he stepped into the street, to his lips again laid his long pipe of smooth straight cane, and ere he blew 3 notes, such sweet soft notes as if musicians cunning never gave the enraptured air. There was a rustling, sweeping like a bustling, a merry crowd justling, a pitching and hustling. Small feet were pattering, wooden shoes clattering, little hands clapping, little tongues chattering, and like foals in a farmyard and barley is scattering, oh came the children running, all the little boys and girls, with rosy cheeks and flaxen curls, and sparkling eyes and teeth like pearls, tripping and skipping around merrily after. The wonderful music was shouting and laughter. The mayor was dumb, and the council stood as if they're changed into blocks of wood, unable to move a step or cry, to the children merrily skipping by, could only follow with an eye the joyous crowd of the pipers back, and how the mayor was on the rack, and the wretched council's bosom of beat. As the pipe returned from the high street, to where the Weser rolled its waters, right in the way of their sons and daughters, how it returned from south to west, into Copperberg Hill his steps stressed, up to him the children pressed, great was the joy in every breast. He never can cross the mighty top, his force let the piping drop, and we shall see our children stop. When lo, they reached the mountainside, a wondrous portal opened wide, as if a cavern was suddenly hollowed. The piper advanced and the children followed, and when all were in to the very last, the door in the mountainside shut fast. Did I say all? No, one was lame, and could not dance the whole of the way. And in after years, if you would blame his sadness, he used to say, it is dull in our town since my playmates left. I can't forget that I'm bereft of all the pleasant sights they see, which the piper also promised me. For he led us, he said, to a joyous land, joining the town and jest at hand. where waters gushed and fruit trees grew, and flowers went forth of fairer hue, and everything was strange and new. The sparrow was bred in a peacock here, and our dogs outran our fellow deer, and honeybees had lost their stings, and horses were born with eagles' wings. And just as I became assured, my lame foot was speedily cured. The music stopped, and I stood still, and found myself outside the hill, left behind against my will, to go now limping as before, and never hear of that country more. Alas, alas for Hamelin, there came into many a burgher's pate a text which says at heaven's gate, opes the rich at as easy rate as the needle's eye takes a camel in. The mayor sent east, west, north, and south to offer the piper by word of mouth, wherever was men's lot to find him, silver and gold to his heart's content, if only he returned the way he went, and bring the children behind him. But when they saw it was lost endeavor, the piper and dancers were gone forever. They made a decree that lawyers never should take their records dated duly, if after the day of the month and year, these words do not as well appear. And so long after what happened here, on the 22nd of July, 1376, in the veteran memory affixed the place of the children's last retreat, they called it the Pied Piper Street, where anyone playing pipe or tabor was sure for his future lose his labor, nor suffered they hostelry or tavern, shock with mirth a street so solemn. And opposite the place of the cavern, they wrote the story on a column, and on great church window painted, the same to make the world acquainted, how their children were stolen away, and there it stands this very day. And I must not admit to say that in Transylvania there is a tribe of alien people who ascribe the way and dress of which their neighbors lay such stress to their fathers and mothers having risen out of some subterranean prison into which they were trepanned a long time ago in a mighty band out of Hamelin towns in Brunswick land, but how or why they don't understand. So, Lily, let me and you be wipers of scores out with all men, especially pipers. And if they should pipe us free from rats or from mice, if we promise them aught, let us keep our promise. There once was a young man named Roland Pide who played the recorder when he wasn't baking bagels. One day he was walking through a park and playing his recorder to rest a while from all his baking, when suddenly he spied a corpse lying on the ground beneath a swarm of flies. He put down his recorder, walked over to the corpse, shooed the flies away, and covered the dead man with stones. Returning to his oven later that day, he found that his oven blade had gone on by itself and already baked half the bagels he needed. From that day on, Roland Pide was the happiest baker alive. He would bake until he was tired, then he would pull his recorder out of his pocket while his oven blade went on by itself. But Roland Pide lived in a town whose mayor did not admire his skill and was jealous of his fame. So the mayor devised a plan to rid the town of Roland. In the beginning, he said that Roland was a good worker, but lazy. Next, he said that Roland baked a whole lot, but badly. Then he accused Roland of being a sorcerer, and the people turned on him. Roland therefore took his pipe and left his home behind. When Roland came to a neighboring town, he found that he went to all the business owners, but none of them would give him any work. Finally, he met an old busker and asked him for work to keep body and mind together. "Come along with me," said the old man. "We will share alms." So Roland Pide and the old man started going around and singing, "Baker, why do you bear those silent things? Baker, how do you forget to stand where your feet are? Baker, no woman loves your wealth, although it is golden and good for her health. Baker, you are too dirty for a lover to wish to preen. Your limbs are the knots and cords of an old-fashioned machine. Baker, line the rings and bash the boards. You don't need their applause for a thing that is yours. You are a baker and are what you are, not by a miracle, but by the work of your arms. Baker, stand where your feet are." Everybody gave alms to the old man, but to Roland they said, "What is a young man like you out begging? Why don't you work for a living?" "Nobody will hire me," replied Roland Pide. "That's what you say. There is a king with so many hungry soldiers that he'll pay good wages to anyone willing to feed them." So Roland Pide went to the king's kitchen and took the old man whose alms he'd been sharing. The oven had never been used by anyone. Roland mixed the dough. Then he rolled it into rings. Then he boiled them, dressed them with seeds. Then he baked them until they were golden brown. Then he tossed them into a crate to cool down. Whenever he wearied of baking, he would pull out his recorder, and once he was weary of playing his recorder, he'd sing, "Baker, why do you bear those silent things? Baker, how did you forget to stand where your feet are? Baker, no woman loves your wealth, although it is golden and good for her health. Baker, you are too dirty for a lover to wish to cream. Your limbs are the knots and cords of an old-fashioned machine. Baker, line the rings and bash the boards. You don't need their applause for a thing that is yours. You are a baker and are what you are, not by a miracle, but by the work of your arms. Baker, be who you are." Hearing the singing, a princess looked out the window. She saw Roland Pide and fell in love with him. But she was a princess, and he a baker. The king would never consent to their marriage. So they decided to run away together. They fled at night in a boat. When they were already on the high seas, Roland Pide remembered the busker.
he said to his beloved, "We must fetch the old man, since he shared his alms with me. We can't go off and leave him like that." At that very moment, the old man came up behind the boat, walking on the water as though it had been dry land. Reaching the boat, he said, "We agreed to divide everything we had, and I shared everything I owned. Now you have the king's daughter, and must give half of her to me." At this, he gave Roland Pide a knife to cut his bride in two. Roland Pide took the knife with a trembling hand. "You are right," he said. "You are perfectly right." He was on the point of cutting his bride in two when suddenly the old man stopped him. "Stop! I knew you were a just man. I am the dead man, mind you, whom you buried with stones. Go now, and may the two of you always be happy." The old man walked away on the waves. The boat came to an island rich in all good things, with a princely palace awaiting the newlyweds. That was the story about Roland Pide and the Oven Blade. The first story in a series I'm working on right now. It's based on an Italian folk tale compiled and translated by Italo Calvio. Italo Calvio. He was an Italian writer. I think he passed away in the late 90s, I think. Maybe earlier than that, maybe 80s. Show my next batch, I guess. My first thought was he lied in every word, that hoary cripple with malicious eye, askins to watch the working of his lie one mind, and most scarce able to afford suppression of the glee that pursed and scolded its edge at one more victim gained thereby. What else should he be sent for with his staff? What saved the waylay with his lies and snare? All travelers who might find him posted there, and asked the road. I guessed what skull-like laugh would break, what crutch can write my epitaph for pastime in the dusty thoroughfare. And if at his counsel I should turn aside and along this track which all agree hides the dark tower, yet acquiescingly I did turn as he pointed, neither pride nor hope rekindling at the end described, so much as gladness some end might be. For what with my whole world wide wondering, what with my search drawn out through years, my hope dwindled into a ghost not fit to cope with that obstreperous joy success would bring. I hardly tried now to rebuke the spring my heart made, finding failure in scope. As a sick man very near to death seems dead indeed, and feels begin and end the tears, and takes the farewell of each friend, and hears one bid the other go, draw breath freely outside, since all is over, he saith, and the blow fallen no grieving kind of man. While some discuss if near other graves be room enough for this, and when a day suits best for carrying the corpse away, with care about banners, scarfs, and staves, and still the man hears all and all he craves, he may not shame such tender love and stay. Thus I have for so long suffered in this quest, heard failure prophesied so often writ, so many times among the band of wit, the knights who true dark tower search and dress their steps, that just to fail as they seem best, and all doubt was now should I be fit. So quiet as despair I turned from him, that hateful cripple, out of his highway into the path he pointed. All the day had been a dreary one at best, and dim was settling into its close, yet shot one grim red leer to see the plain catch its gray. For mark, no sooner was I fairly found, pledged the plain after a pace or two, and pausing till backward a last view, over the safe road 'twas gone, grey plain all round, nothing but plain to the horizon's bound. I must go on, naught else remained to do. So on I went. I think I never saw such starved ignoble nature. Nothing throve, for flowers as well expect the cedar grove, but chortle and spurge according to their law, might propagate their kind with none to awe. You think a bird would be a treasure trove. No penry inertness ingrimace, in some strange sort were the land's portion. See or close your eyes, said nature peevishly, in nothing skills. I can't help my case. 'Tis last judgment's fire must cure this place, calcine its clods and set my prisoners free. If there pushed any ragged thistle stalk above its mates, its head was chopped. The bents were jealous else. What made the holes and rents in the dog's harsh swarth leaves? Bruised as to balk all hope of greenness. 'Tis a brute must walk, pashing their life with brutes intense. As for the grass, it grew as scarce as hair and leprosy. Thin, dry blades pricked the mud, which underneath was kneaded up with blood. One stiff, blind horse, his every bone a stare, stood stupefied however he came there, thrust out past service from the devil's stud. Alive, he might be dead for aught I know, with red gaunted callous neck strained, and shut eyes beneath the rusty mane. Seldom one such grotesqueness with such woe. I never saw a brute I hated so. He must have been wicked to deserve such a fate. I shut my eyes and turned upon my heart, as a man calls for wine before he fights. I asked one draught of earlier, happier sights. Ere fitly I could hope to play the part, think first, fight afterward, soldier's art. One taste of old times sets all the rights. Not it. I fancied Cuthbert's reddening face beneath its garniture of curly gold. Dear fellow, till I almost felt him fold, an arm in mine to fix me to that place, that way he used. Alas, the night's disgrace, how at my heart's tired and left it cold. Giles sang, the soul of honor, there he stands, frank as 10 years ago when night is first. An honest man should dare, he said he durst. Good but the scene shifts, fall what hangman's hand pinned to his breast the parchment. His own band reads it, poor traitor spit upon and cursed. Better this present than a past like that, back therefore to my darkening path. No sound, no sight as far as the eye can strain. Will the night send a howlet or a bat, I asked, when something on the dismal flat came to arrest my thoughts and change their train. A sudden little river crossed my path, as unexpected as a serpent came, no tides congenial to the gloom. This, as it frothed by, might have been a bath of steam flowing hoop, to see the wrath with black eddies bespat with plates and spoons. So petty yet so spiteful, all along low stubby alders kneeled over it, drenched willows flung them headlong in a fit of rout despair, a suicidal throng, the river which had done them all the wrong, whatever that was, rolled by, deterred no whit. Which while I forded, good saints how I feared, to set my foot upon a dead man's cheek, each step or feel the spear I thrust to seek, for hollows tangle in his hair or beard. It may have been a water rat I speared, but it sounded like a baby's shriek. Glad was I to reach other bank. Now for a better country, fame, prestige. Who are the strugglers? What war did they wage? Whose savage trample could thus pad the dank soil to a plash? Toads in a poison tank, or wild cats in a red-hot cage? The fight must so have seemed in that foul circus. What penned them there with all the plain to choose? No footsteps leading to that horrid muse. None out of it. Mad brewage set to work, their brains no doubt like galley slaves. The Turk pits for his pastime, Christians against Jews. And more than that, a furlong on, why there, what bad use was that engine for? That wheel, or brake no wheel, that harrow fit to reel men's bodies out like silk, with all the air of Tophet's tool, unearthed left unaware, or brought to sharpen its rusty teeth of steel. Then came some stub ground, once wood, next to marsh it seemed, now mere earth, desperate and done with, so the fool finds mirth, makes a thing and mars it, till his mood changes, and off he goes, within a rude bog, clay and marsh, sand and stark black dirt. Now blotches rankling, colored gay and grim, now patches where salininess of the soils broke into moss or substances like boils. Then came a palsied oak, a cleft in him, a distorted mouth splits its rim, gaping at death and dies while it recoils. As far as there ever from the end, not in the distance but the evening not, to point my footsteps further at the thought, great black bird, Apollyon's bosom friend, sailed past or beat his wide winged dragon pen, that brushed my cap perchance the god I sought. For looking up where I somehow grew, plain and given place all round the mountains with such names to grace mere heights and leaps now stolen in view. How thus they surprised me saw but you, how to get from there was no clear case. Yet half I seem to recognize some trick of mischief had happened to me, God knows when, in a bad dream perhaps, here ended then progress this way, when in the very nick of giving up one more time came a click, as when the trap shuts you're in the den. Burningly it came upon me all at once. This was the place. Those two hills crouched like two bulls locked horn in fight, while to the left a tall scout mountain, God's daughter to dozing at the very nunts after a lifetime of training for the sight. What in the midst lay but the tower itself, the round squat turret built of brown stone without a counterpart, blind as a fool's heart, built of brown stone without a counterpart in the whole world. The tempest mocking out points to the ship and thus the unseen shelf. He strikes on only when timbers start. Not see, because of night perhaps, why day came back for that. Behind it left the dying sunset, kindled through a cleft. The hills like two giants in the hunting lay, chin upon hand to see the game at bay. They'll stab an enemy creature through the heft. Not here, when noise was everywhere, it told, increasing like the bell, names in my ears, of lost adventurers, my peers, how such was strong, and such was bold, and such was fortunate, yet each of old, lost one moment now the woe of years. There they stood, ranged along the hillside met, to view the last of me, a living frame. For one more picture in a sheet of flame, I saw them and knew them all, and yet, dauntless, a slughorn to my lips I set and blew. Child Roland to a dark tower came.